Hello friends, now let us learn about the next topic, about a few points about fracture. So what is fracture? Fracture is nothing but break in continuity of bone is called as fracture. Okay, it can even if there is a break in single cortex of the bone. See, bone can be broken like this, then obviously it is called as fracture, right? If there is break like this, has seen here, the break is present in the single cortex of bone, even then we call it as fracture. We call it fracture even when there is a break in single cortex of bone. Then when do we call it as sprain? What is sprain? Sprain is the defect in the muscle is called as strain. We call something as strain if there is defect in the muscle, then we call it as strain. When do you call something as sprain? We call something as sprain when there is a defect in the ligament, we call it as sprain. Okay, when is something called as strain is whenever there is problem in muscle, defect in muscle, we call it as strain. When there is defect in ligament, we call it as sprain. What is dislocation? What is dislocation? Dislocation is if two surfaces are without contact, then we call it as dislocation. That means if this is the head of the humerus, this is the glenoid cavity, these both should be in contact. If they are not in contact, then we call it as dislocation, right? Then we will see some one-liners. What is the most common fracture in humans? Most common fracture in humans is fracture clavicle. Most common fracture at birth is fracture clavicle. Most common fracture in a child is green stick fracture of forearm bones. Okay, what is the most common fracture in humans? That is fracture clavicle. What is the most common fracture seen at birth? That is also fracture clavicle. What is the most common fracture in child? That is green stick fracture of forearm bones. Then what is the most common fracture in adults? In adults, vertebral column fracture more than, neck of femur more than, distal end of radius. So first most common fracture is vertebral fracture, followed by fracture neck of femur, followed by fracture distal end of radius. Then what is there is one more, some most common fractures. What is the most common fracture on an outstretched hand? Most common fracture on an outstretched hand in a child, if you see, in a child it is fracture supracondylar humerus. When you were given in the history that what is the most common fracture in outstretched hand, if it is in a child, it is fracture supracondylar humerus. If it is in adolescents, then it is fracture of scaphoid bone. If it is in adults, then that is fracture of distal end of radius. Okay, so this is fracture in most common fracture due to fall on an outstretched hand. Then let us now learn about some points about fracture healing. Okay, in the fracture healing we have 5 different zones of fracture healing. So if you see, first we have something called as fracture hematoma. Whenever there is trauma, okay, this trauma results in formation of blood leaking to that site, causing fracture hematoma in around 2 to 3 days of life. This fracture hematoma is formed in about 2 to 3 days of life. Okay, after this formation of fracture hematoma, these osteoclasts will come to this site. Okay, first and foremost, osteoclasts will come to this site, and these will produce some chemotactic factors which will activate fibroblasts and neutrophils. Okay, now what does these fibroblasts and neutrophils do? In the subsequent 2 to 3 weeks, these fibroblasts and neutrophils will lead to the generation of granulation tissue. Okay, in almost 2 to 3 weeks, these will result in formation of some granulation tissue is formed in 2 to 3 weeks. Then after that, then what happens? These fibroblasts in these 2 to 3 weeks, it forms growth factors. Okay, and this granulation tissue is laid. Okay, once these growth factors gets activated, and these will activate the osteoblasts, and during this process the acidic pH which is present in the fracture site gets converted to basic pH. Okay, and this leads to these osteoblasts will lay down soft bone which is called as callus. So the third process is callus formation, and it occurs in around 2 to 3 months of age. Around 2 to 3 months of age you see this callus formation. Now after this callus formation, this callus which is formed undergoes calcification and it forms something called as woven bone or consolidated bone. Okay, for this woven bone and consolidated bone, it takes 2 to 3 years for this woven bone and consolidated bone to form, and after that this bone now undergoes the collagen within the bone becomes laminar. Okay, and it results in formation of remodeling of the bone. This remodeling of the bone, it takes around more than 2 years for the bone to remodel. Okay, so in the woven bone itself there is formation of hard rigid bone, but here the collagen is not, it is not in straight laminar, but slowly the collagen becomes laminar, leading to remodeling of the bone. So now what are the stages which we are dealt with? So first stage is fracture hematoma, then osteoclast activation, fibroblast activation and neutrophil activation, leading to formation of granulation tissue. Okay, now this granulation tissue is laid down and this will osteoblasts get activated and they will form callus. Okay, callus, the osteoblasts lay down callus in around 2 to 3 months. This callus undergoes calcification and it forms woven bone or consolidated bone in around 2 to 3 years. This woven or consolidated bone, in this the collagen becomes laminar, and around more than 3 years it becomes remodeling and forms the normal bone. Okay, now there are some one-liners which are important in this. So what is the earliest X-ray stage of non-union? Earliest X-ray stage of non-union is callus formation, which occurs at around 3 months. Earliest X-ray stage of union is callus formation, which occurs at around 3 months. Then what is the earliest clinical stage of non-union? The earliest clinical stage of non-union is woven bone, which occurs in 2 to 3 years. At around 2 to 3 years clinically you can tell that there is union. Okay, earliest when you can predict that there will be union. Prediction of union can be done earliest by 3 weeks. See, earliest X-ray stage of union is callus, which occurs at 3 months. Earliest clinical stage of union is by woven bone, which occurs at 2 to 3 years. Earliest stage when you can predict union is at 3 weeks. When can you do implant removal? Implant removal can be done if the implant is put more than 2 years. After 2 years of implant placement, you can remove the implant. When do you call something has delayed union? We call something has delayed union if there is no callus formation by 6 months. If there is no callus formation after 6 months, then you can call it as delayed union. If no callus formation occurs after 9 months, by 9 months also if there is no callus formation, then you call it as non-union. What is the most common site of non-union? That is lower end of 1/3 of tibia is the most common site of non-union. Right? Next, what are the X-ray signs of non-union? When can you say that there is non-union in X-ray? When there is a fracture line for more than 9 months. When the fracture line is seen for 9 months, then you can say that there is non-union. Okay, what are the features? When the fracture line is present for 9 months, then you can say that there is non-union. Okay, if there is paucity of callus, that means if this is the fracture line, right, this fracture line is surrounded by callus on both the sides. Okay, then and those callus contains round and sclerotic margin, the margin is round, then we call it as non-union. Okay, now if you were asked what is the most common cause of non-union, inadequate immobilization is the most common cause of non-union. Okay, you should immobilize the bone or fracture site properly. If there is inadequate immobilization, then it is the most common cause of non-union. So this causes hypertrophic non-bridging callus. So, hypertrophic non-bridging callus. Now, what is the treatment? the treatment here includes, we will have to first and foremost, whenever there is a whenever there is a non-union, first and foremost you will have to fix with nail. First you will fix it with a nail and then apply as a cast, POP cast. It might undergo union. If it does not undergo union, then put an external fixator. But if still it does not undergo union, then fix it with bone grafting. Actually, this fixing with bone grafting is the most preferred treatment for non-union. Okay. Now, so I said there will be bone grafting which is done, right? Now, which is the bone which is suitable for grafting? Okay, what is the donor site? The most common bone which is used for bone grafting is iliac crest, most commonly, followed by fibula. So iliac crest is the most common bone which is used for bone grafting. Okay, then if you were asked what is the best site for cancellous bone graft, if you have to do a cancellous bone graft, what is the best site? Then posterior superior iliac spine is the best site for cancellous bone graft. Then what are the examples of non-union? Then these are the different examples of non-union which you should remember. So the examples of non-union include, we have neck of femur, fracture neck of femur, fracture lateral condyle of femur, fracture lower third of ulna, fracture body of talus, fracture lower 1/3 of tibia, and fracture scaphoid bone. So what are the examples of non-union? Fracture neck of femur, fracture lateral condyle of humerus, fracture lower third of ulna, fracture body of talus, fracture lower 1/3 of tibia, and scaphoid fracture are the examples of non-union of fracture. Right? Next, we will see few points about treatment of fracture. Okay, so how are you going to treat the fracture? The fracture treatment depends upon the type of fracture, whether it is an open fracture or whether it is a closed fracture. If it is open fracture, when do you say it is open fracture? If the site is open to the external environment, then it is called as open fracture. When do you say closed fracture? If the fracture site does not open outside, then it is called as closed fracture. How are you going to treat the fracture? The fractures are treated by, first and foremost, you should try conservative management. Okay, for any fracture, the first mode is conservative management. So in the conservative management, first do a closed reduction. In the conservative, what do you do? First you will have to do a closed reduction with plaster of Paris application. If this plaster of Paris is applied on one side, we call it as slab. If this plaster of Paris is applied on both the sides, then we call it as cast. Even after doing this closed reduction with plaster of Paris, even then it is not uniting, or if this is not possible, then if only and only if this is not possible, then you should do an open reduction with internal fixation should be done. If this is not possible, then you should do open reduction with internal fixation. So what do you do in open reduction? In open reduction, you will put a skin incision for the fracture reduction, and in internal fixation you will put either a nail or plate, and this can be done under the guidance of CR. Okay, that is open reduction and internal fixation. Okay, this closed reduction and placement of POP is almost similar to closed reduction and internal fixation. Actually, what is this closed reduction and internal fixation? Here in closed reduction and internal fixation, you will definitely put a incision, or else how can you put the nail or something, screw inside it, right? But the incision which you put does not be on the hematoma. It will be away from the hematoma. It does not disturb the hematoma. That is closed reduction in internal fixation. Even here you can put a bone, you can put a nail, or you can put a screw, or you can put a K-wire. Screws are put in fracture neck of femur, whereas K-wires are put in fracture supracondylar fracture of humerus. In fracture supracondylar fracture of humerus, you put K-wires. In fracture neck of humerus, you put screw fixation. Then this fracture which we are dealing, there is one more classification which is also important. This can be divided into either the fracture can be extra-articular or intra-articular fracture. When do you call the fracture as extra-articular fracture? If the joint space is not affected, then we call it as extra-articular fracture. Okay, that is outside the articular surface. Here joint is not affected. Okay, in this extra-articular fracture, most of the times you will do closed reduction with hematoma. Because if you see here, hematoma is preserved. You don't need to disturb the fracture because the joint is not affected. So you are not displacing the joint. So the joint is not displaced. So as a result, you can easily do closed reduction with hematoma in this extra-articular fracture. Then if you see in intra-articular fracture, joint is affected. Because here the joint is affected, first and foremost you should restore the articular surfaces, right? You should bring the joint surfaces together. Okay, because if you could not restore or bring the joint surfaces together, then there will be formation of inflammatory reaction here, leading to inflammation of joints called as arthritis. So it can cause arthritis. So in order to prevent this arthritis, the treatment of choice here is open reduction with hematoma drainage is the treatment of choice for intra-articular fractures. So if you see, if I have to say in one line, extra-articular fractures we use closed reduction and hematoma. For intra-articular fractures we use open reduction and hematoma drainage. Okay, so that is the one lines if you have to say, right? Then we will see the examples now. See, which of the following are fractures of non-union? Okay, the fractures which cause non-union include these following. 1. We have fracture neck of femur, then fracture lateral condyle of humerus, fracture lower 1/3 of ulna, fracture lower 1/3 of tibia, fracture of scaphoid, and fracture of body of talus. So all these will cause fracture of non-union. Okay, what are they again? Fracture neck of femur, fracture lateral condyle of humerus, fracture lateral lower 1/3 of ulna, fracture lower 1/3 of tibia, fracture scaphoid bone, and fracture body of talus. These are the which cause non-union, fractures which cause non-union. Then what are the fractures which cause malunion? Now malunion is seen in the following fractures. Malunion is seen in fracture of clavicle. Okay, fracture of clavicle we see malunion, fracture supracondylar fracture of humerus, intertrochanteric fracture of humerus, and Colles fracture we see fracture malunion. Then we have something called as fracture of necessity. Okay, what do you see? What are the examples of what is fracture of necessity? As the name says, fracture of necessity. Here surgery is definitely required. So that is fracture always requires surgery. That is the reason why we have to do open reduction and internal fixation in these fractures for sure. So why do we need to do surgery for sure in these patients? Because if we do not see all these fractures, if you whatever we are learning today, all these fractures are either intracapsular fractures. Okay, if they are intracapsular fractures, that means they are lined by the synovial fluid, and because they are lined by synovial fluid, there is no callus formation. Okay, they can be intracapsular fracture, that is inside the capsule articular cartilage. So because of their synovial lining, it is impossible that they form the normal callus, and they have common extensor origin or common muscle origin, and as a result, because of common muscle origin, they cause massive displacement, and because of this massive displacement, we cannot even do closed reduction. Then they have poor blood supply. Obviously, if they have poor blood supply, because of loss of proper blood supply, they cannot be united properly. So what are the fractures which you see in fracture of necessity? We have intra-articular fractures, which I have already said. Then we have forearm bone fractures, which include Galeazzi's fracture and Monteggia fracture, which we will see in our next class, and fracture of lateral condyle of humerus. So these are the fracture of necessity where you definitely require surgery. Then what about the open fracture? What are the important things about open fracture? Okay, when do you call an open, what is the treatment of open fracture? So if there is an open fracture, always you have two things. One, you have closed reduction or internal fixation is done, or you can do open reduction and internal fixation. Okay, as the first step, you will have to try this as the first step. And here if you see, in internal fixation you will have to put a metal inside. Remember, when a metal is put inside, there is increased chances that the patient gets an infection, right? There is increased activation of infection. So because there is increased activation of infection, this metal which is put promotes infection, which causes osteomyelitis. Osteomyelitis is a very bad condition, right, which might disable the patient. So as a result, this closed reduction and internal fixation is not preferred. In open fractures, this closed reduction and internal fixation is not preferred because of this infection. Then what is the treatment of choice for this open fracture? For open fracture, if you were asked the treatment of choice, that is debridement and putting an external fixation. The treatment of choice is you will have to first debride the joint and then put an external fixator. That is the treatment of choice for open fractures. Then let us learn about next classification, which is Gustillo-Anderson classification for open fractures. So what do you see in this Gustillo-Anderson classification of open fractures? It has three grades. I have even diagram in the next place, just a minute. So first, I'll even try to draw wound here. Okay, if this is the wound, see, 1 minute, just think that this is the skin. Okay, this is the skin. Number 2, 3 has 3 parts, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now just think this is the wound. The wound is clean and it is at a depth of less than 1 centimeter. Okay, then this is the first part of Gustillo-Anderson classification for open fractures, where the wound is less than 1 centimeter. Okay, then second, if the wound is more than 1 centimeter with soft tissue damage, that is the grade 2. Grade 2 is, here the wound is more than 1 centimeter with soft tissue damage, we call it as grade 2. Okay, then when do you call it as grade 3? In grade 3 there is extensive soft tissue damage, but what is present is there is periosteal cover, what is present here is there is periosteal coverage is adequate. This is periosteal coverage, this is adequate. So this is grade 3. In grade 3 there is soft tissue involvement, but there is periosteal coverage. In all the grade 3 there is soft tissue, excessive soft tissue involvement. Okay, in 3A, but here you see there is proper periosteal coverage. Then in 3B, if you see, there is periosteal stipping. Now here periosteum is not properly seen, that is 3B. Here in 3B there is a problem in periosteum, it is not properly seen. In 3C there is vascular injury, there is injury to the vessel. In 3B, what is happening? There is injury to the vessel, that is 3C. 3C, there is neurovascular injury. So what is first? First, the puncture wound should be less than 1 centimeter. Second, the puncture wound is more than 1 centimeter with soft tissue damage. Third, there is extensive soft tissue damage. 3A, the periosteum is intact. 3B, extensive soft tissue damage with periosteum stipping present. In 3C, extensive soft tissue damage with neurovascular injury is 3C. Okay, now in the first two conditions, if you see the first two conditions, that is if the puncture wound is less than 1 centimeter and it is, if the puncture wound is less than 1 centimeter and it is clean, and if the wound is more than 1 centimeter without any tissue, soft tissue damage, then you can do an internal fixation or external fixation. You can do either internal fixation or you can do either external fixation. But in third, where there is extensive soft tissue damage, there is no question of internal fixation here. Always and always you should do only external fixation, because if you try any type of internal fixation, that will easily get infected, and that will cause even more complications. So what is the most common organism infection involved in open fractures? In open fractures, Staphylococcal aureus is the most common organism which is involved. Okay, so let me show you this Gastello-Anderson classification again. So in this you can see, this is clean wound 1 centimeter, this is wound more than 1 centimeter, this is soft tissue damage but periosteum is intact, 3A. 3B, soft tissue damage with periosteum is also lost. 3C, there is neurovascular compromise also. Okay, now what is the most common external fixator which is used? The most common external fixator which is used here is Ilizaros ring fixator is the external fixator which can be used. Okay, we have to know what is traction, what is splint. Traction is for aligning the bone and splint is for support. So in the traction we have two types of traction. One, we have skin traction, second we have skeletal traction. Okay, skin traction we use the weight of 5 to 6 kgs for skin traction, and for skeletal traction the body weight itself acts as a traction, and this body weight will be around 20 kgs which acts as a traction. Okay, that is skeletal traction. Then we will learn a few points about this Ilizaros ring fixator. See, here you see this is the bone, there are two rings which are put here. Okay, that is in Ilizaros ring fixation. What are you seeing here? This is an modified external fixator principle. Here the principle in this Ilizaros fixator is distraction histiogenesis. Distraction histiogenesis is a principle which you see here. This distraction is present at the rate of 1 millimeter per day. Okay, that is seen in this Ilizaros ring fixator. And where is it used? It is used for deformity correction and also to increase the length of the limb. Okay, so this is Ilizaros fixator. Next, so this is about the general features of fracture. Thank you guys for watching my lecture. In the next class we will learn about specific fractures of upper limb. Thank you.